My name is Michael Fryer. I graduated from Center College in 2014, and Dr. Knoll has asked if I would share a little bit about what I did at Center, what I've done since Center, and how the skills that I learned at Center have come in handy post-graduation. So to give you a sense of what I did at Center, I majored in economics, but also took a number of classes in international relations, Spanish, religion, as well as Government 110 with Dr. Knoll. I ran cross country. I was a resident assistant. I was a member of Phi Kappa Tau fraternity, and I studied abroad for a semester at Queen's University Belfast in Northern Ireland. After graduating from Center, I studied international development at the London School of Economics and Political Science. Then I began working at the Evidence for Policy Design initiative at Harvard Kennedy School, working with policymakers to help them understand how to better use data in decision making. And currently, I work as a quantitative social scientist with Juntos, working to advance financial inclusion in low and middle income countries. In terms of the skills that have come in handy after graduating, the most important meta skill, I think, is having a growth mindset. So for those who aren't familiar, this is an idea that comes out of the research of a psychologist named Carol Dweck. And the idea that there are two types of mindsets. There is a fixed mindset where you view your abilities and your aptitudes as something that is just given, that can't be changed. And then there's a growth mindset where you realize that your abilities are things that can be intentionally developed and refined and honed and improved with concerted practice and effort. So when it comes to any discussion of skills, it's important to say at the start, I think, that if you're interested in a skill, if you're excited about it, if you're passionate about building that skill and using it, then I think you can learn it. And often you'll find you're able to learn it much faster than you would have thought. In terms of skills more broadly, the evidence, as well as my experience, suggests that the most valuable skills are those that can be thought of broadly as leadership skills, things that include critical thinking, management, including managing your own time, as well as communication. And you don't have to be in a leadership role. Even obviously early in my career, I haven't been in leadership roles necessarily, but in most positions you are given a degree of control over the projects that you work on, and you have to take some sort of ownership or leadership of them and decide what are the right questions to be pursuing here? How do I balance spending time going really in depth versus just getting an answer out so that I can refine that based on feedback from others? And when I do come up with something to share, how do I share that in a way that's understandable? So those skills of critical analysis and management and communication are ones that, even if they can be thought of as leadership skills, come in particularly handy as someone even early in the stages of your career. If you're interested in data analysis and data science in particular, it is especially helpful to learn a programming language. The two most commonly used languages are Python and R. And these are things that, going back to what I was saying about a growth mindset, I didn't know how to use after I graduated from Center. At Center, I had used Stata in my economics classes, but hadn't been exposed to Python or R. But I taught myself because I was interested, and it allowed me to solve questions that I thought were exciting. So if you are interested in learning how to do this type of analysis, both Python and R are free to download and free to use. And there's a huge online community of people who are helping each other figure out how to learn to use these. Any problem that you have, you can search, and there's going to be some variant of it that someone else has had, often with a solution that's been shared by another person. So that's a particular skill that is useful for data analysis and data science, that is especially valuable because it's transferable to many different types of problems, sectors, whether you're interested in health or education or finance, whether you want to work for a government agency or a private company. It's something that can be used, and that gives you more options, and it also gives you a bit more leverage when you're negotiating. And it's something where it's easily verifiable. It's a little tough to gauge. You certainly can in an interview gauge people's communication and how they manage their time to a certain extent. But it's quite easy to gauge, what's your level of technical competence using a language like that by having someone complete a quantitative task. And that's been the case for all the jobs I've had, where I've had to complete tasks as part of the application process, but that I felt has allowed me to show my skills and let my work speak for itself, and makes the process a little bit meritocratic. In terms of what you can do to develop these skills at Center, the first broad group of skills I mentioned, those kind of broad leadership skills, that college is actually a really, really good time to try and develop those, that you can be involved in organizations where you can take a role that forces you to communicate and plan and take ownership of projects. But even in your classes, even setting aside extracurriculars, independent projects and group projects are great opportunities to develop those skills. So when I was at Center, my projects, not only in my quantitative courses, like my econometrics courses, but also in other courses where I wasn't doing quantitative analysis necessarily, but I had to think about how to structure an argument and how to condense an argument. That I got really helpful feedback from professors saying, this is a great paper, but it's just too long. That those were opportunities to develop skills that have come in really handy. And if you're particularly interested in data analysis, you can use those independent or group projects that are term projects, or projects you're working on over the summer, or projects you want to present at the Rice Symposium, to give yourself an excuse to use some of those programming skills and learn some of those programming skills that in the independent projects I've completed using Python. It was not only a chance to show what I knew, but more importantly, to force myself to learn new things. That I started out with a project that I just had a sense was just doable, that if I worked at it, I could probably complete it. But at the beginning, I certainly didn't know all of the skills that I was going to need to complete it. I just knew and believed, going back to growth mindsets, that I could figure them out. And so the reason why those projects are particularly valuable is because they allow you to showcase that whole range of skills. They allow you to showcase critical thinking, the ability to identify a problem that's interesting and answerable. They show management skills, the ability to get a project done on a deadline. They show communication skills when you write it up, especially if you're presenting in class or in something like the Rice Symposium. And if you're using a programming language like Python or R, you can make your code publicly available on GitHub. And it shows to others, including potential employers, that you know how to write functional and readable code. And so it becomes a great way to signal those skills. And the final thing on the value of those projects is that they're a great time because right now you, as a student, are incentivized to focus on that full time. It's a lot easier than when you're trying to do it as a side project on top of other things that you're doing. You have the commitment device of a timeline and some accountability. You also have a support network of your classmates and peers who are also doing similar projects at the same time, and you can learn from and work with each other. So those opportunities are ones that I would encourage you to take advantage of and make the most of them, and it's certain to pay off after graduation.